Okay, welcome to another episode of Sussex Sport Weekly podcast. I'm Derren Howard, and this week I'm joined by Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford and Frankie Elliott, plus Steve Bone, who covers all things sport in Sussex for our newspapers and online at sussexworld.co.uk. Brighton had the perfect start to their Premier League campaign with a 4-1 win against Luton, but it's the Moises Caidcedo transfer which has dominated the headlines for much of the week. We will look at who might replace the midfielder and other transfer news, as well as looking ahead to their trip to Wolves on Saturday. It's also an FA Cup weekend with 10 Sussex clubs still in the famous competition. Steve Bone will talk us through that, along with how our local sides are doing in the National League South and the Ishman Premier League. But this week, we're going to start with Crawley Town. They beat Milton Keynes Dons 2-1 on Tuesday night to go third in League. A great start, Mark. They're most people's favourites to go down, but what has happened? What are the good results down to, do you think?
Well, it's from what I saw on Tuesday, that was my first game I'd actually watched them live. I'd seen the highlights of the previous games when they beat Bradford and drew with Salford, but it's just down to really good football. They were absolutely superb, and this might be a bit hyperbolic, but Danilo Orsi, the goal scorer, winning goal scorer of the second goal on Tuesday night, he said it was a little bit like Barcelona at times, and it was. There was if you get a chance to see both goals, Nick Cerullo's first goal and Orsi's strike, they were absolute quality passing moves, like just one touch inside the fullbacks, down the left-hand side, and then brilliant finishes. It's he's Scott Lindsay's put together a really good team, and there's obviously the fans. They've had their say over the summer about all the players leaving, etc. But he's got a team he has put together that are able to play the football he wants to play, I think, and that's how they're doing it. They could against Salford, they only drew, but they apparently should have been 4 or 5 up at half time, killed the game off. Against Bradford, they should have scored more, and against MK Dons on Tuesday night, they could have scored more. So there's only that's the only worrying aspect. At some point, they've got, if they start putting away their chances, they could be hammering teams, but it could cost them at times as well. So no, it's a great start. And you said last season and quite a few times over the summer that they finally had the right man in charge in Scott Lindsay. How much success is this down to him? Pretty much, I'd say about 99% of it. I suppose you can give 1% credit to Wagme for appointing him, but it really is down to him. Like I say, at the end of last season, obviously when he came in January, they were in a lot of trouble, and he did what he had to do to get them safe, and he did that. But this year, over the summer, he's had a clear out. Nick Cerullo is the only player left from the team that beat Leeds, famously beat Leeds 3-0 in the FA Cup 2-3 years ago. So it's a completely new team. There are still some players from last season, the likes of Dion Conroy, Raf Khalil, etc. But the majority of the starting 11 in the last few games have been new signings, and he's got them playing some, like I've said, amazing football already in such a short space of time. And he said over the summer that they wanted to get a more younger, fresher squad, and it seems to be working. It's incredible, and he knows what he wants, but he's fully aware it is just a start. He knows, yes, they're great results, but he's not he's making sure the players keep their feet on the ground and that, because it's only 3 games, isn't it? But they, like I said, people thought they were the favourites to go down. Last year, it took them 12 games to get 6 points. They've got 7 points in 3 games this year. So incredible. And we're speaking to him this afternoon at the press conference ahead of the Gillingham game. So it's going to be interesting, what the mood's like at the camp, because it can only be very positive at the moment. No, it's good to see. Looks like the right man for the job. Obviously, Wagme are still the owners, and the fans have been very vocal with their feelings on them. Has that changed at all, given the results at the start of the season? It's been a bit mixed, really. On Tuesday night, even when they were winning, fans were still chanting. Well, I can't repeat on a family podcast like this what they were chanting, but they were chanting "Wag me out," and telling them to go away in a very expletive way. And also they were targeting Preston Johnson. I believe he was at the stadium on Tuesday, and they were targeting him specifically with some personal abuse. So, no, there are sections or not. But on social media, you have a look through, and there are some fans who are saying, look, enough is enough. It's time to start really getting behind the team now. They're winning. And nobody's questioning that all the fans weren't behind the team. But I think some fans are now just thinking, just focus on the team during the game now. You can have your views. Nobody's asking anyone to change their views on WAGMI, but it's just keep it positive during the games, and then, yeah, do whatever you want, have your whatever feelings you want about WAGMI. But they have, I don't think, even if Crawley win the league this year, there are some fans that their views will not change, or even if they finish like in top half in the playoffs, because anything in top half or above relegation is success for Crawley this year, I think, given what happened last year. But I don't think there are some fans that their views will never change. But it was interesting today. WAGMI had to put out a statement, a very rare statement to the fans about how much they're committed to the club, how much they're looking to still engage with the fans and that, because they have a Discord. For anyone who doesn't know, that's a social media platform where people can discuss things live, etc. And they had a moderator that they've parted ways with, and some people thought this was them slowly getting out, like not being part of Web3 anymore and all this. But it was literally just, they just parted ways with this one person. But they put out this statement saying how much they're behind Scott and that they realise they've made mistakes, and they're going to start engaging with the fans, etc. and that. The proof will be in the pudding. They haven't engaged with the fans for quite some time now, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But to answer your original question, I don't think many fans will change their views on WAGMI just yet. Yeah.
Well, I suppose the big question now is, can they keep it up? They have tabletop as Gillingham on Saturday. That's going to be a tough one for them, isn't it, Mark?
It really is, yeah. I mean, they've had such a tough start because Bradford and Salford both in the playoffs last year. And then obviously MK Dons relegated from League One will be wanting to go straight back up, and a team who had won their first 2 games of the season. And now Gillingham, who have spent a lot of money, some of it going Crawley's way with Tom Nichols, Glenn Morris and Ashley Naderson. Yeah. But they've won 3 out of 3, and they've won all of those games 1-0. And surprise, surprise, Ashley Naderson has scored the winner in 2 of those games, kind of thing. So, and one of them was set up by Tom Nichols. So it's going to be, it's going to be a really tough game. But the good thing is we know what Tom Nichols and Ashley Naderson are all about. So Scott Lindsay will have plans in place, I'm sure, for both of those. But yeah, they're not scoring a lot of goals, Gillingham, but they've got a good defence. And Crawley, as I said, are playing the kind of football that can break down defences. So it's going to be a really interesting game on Saturday. Whether they can keep it up over the season, I think they can. They've proven they can beat the top sides already, or who are deemed to be the top sides in League Two already. So it's just a case of fitness. Over the last 2 or 3 years, they have had so many injury issues. Some of it put down to training on harder surfaces and artificial grass. But they're training on grass all the time now. The first 3 games of the season, league games, they started with the same starting 11. And I was trying to find all the statisticians I know in Crawley on Tuesday night. Is this the first time? When was the last time they played 3 same starting 11s in 3 consecutive league games? And nobody could remember. And they thought it was a few years ago now that would have happened, because of the injuries. But Kellen Gordon, who was really good on Tuesday night, he limped off at the start of the second half, which was a shame. So I think there might be a couple of changes for Gillingham on Saturday. But yeah, it would be great if they could keep it up, wouldn't it? And just shock a few teams. I was chatting to someone the other day as well, who said they'd spoken to some of the Bradford players after a game at the weekend when Bradford were at home. And apparently the Bradford players were stunned how good Crawley were. And he said they were just absolutely shocked, and they said they are a proper team who can play. So yeah, I don't think, as we get towards the end of the season, I don't think we look back at these 3 results and think they are surprises. I think they will just be, hopefully, the norm for Crawley Town this season.
So, start of something good.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm going to seamlessly take the hot seat as we move on to Brighton, Derren. Sam Morton was at the Luton game, and Derren, you did a separate video with him looking at that game. But it was the perfect start for Brighton, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You have to say it was very, very impressive, considering all the disruption that Brighton have had to face, you know, on the build up to the match with the Moises Caidcedo transfer. So their two best players from their midfield over the summer, Alexis McAllister and now Moises Caidcedo. But yeah, Brighton performed very well against a really fired up Luton Town, but quite a limited Luton Town as well. So in that respect, it was great for the likes of Mo Dahoud, James Milner, João Pedro to be introduced into a game like that, which probably, they're going to face tougher challenges this season, but it was a really good one to get them up and running. And Luton caused Brighton some issues, some problems early on. They were, very determined, and they actually played quite well. They stuck to sort of a good game plan that they came with. And it got to the point where it was a dodgy penalty, but they got it back to 2-1. Well, there were a couple of dodgy penalties in the match, really, but the Lewis Dunk one should never have been given. But yeah, Luton got their way back into the game, and it was 2-1. Going into the closing stages, and you just wondered if it was going to get a little bit nervy for Brighton. But the impact that the substitutes made coming off the bench, Evan Ferguson and Simon Adingra, looked really sharp. And just as Luton was starting to tire, these two players came on and just took the attack to another level and gave Brighton something that they didn't have last season, which is, real power and real options from the bench in attacking areas. So yeah, it's looking good, I think, Mark. And if they can just get a replacement in for Caicedo as well, and another addition into that midfield, I think they're well set for the season.
Absolutely, yeah. That's been the big news this week, hasn't it, Frankie? Moises Caidcedo's 114 million transfer to Chelsea. You, Derren, and Ian Hart did a separate podcast specifically on that transfer. But Frankie, where are we in terms of a replacement for Caicedo, and how hard will it be to replace him?
Well, he's going to be incredibly hard to replace. I mean, I'm hoping this will be the last time I ever have to speak about Moises Caidcedo and Chelsea. As much as I love him as a player, yeah. I am sick and tired of talking about his potential move. Will he move? He has now moved for a record fee, which is brilliant for Brighton. Obviously, I mean, David, considering that many people didn't think they'd get much more than 70, maybe even 80 million at the start of the summer. I think, including people like Chelsea, Liverpool, didn't think they'd have to pay more than that. Brighton have managed to come out the winners of this deal yet again by getting £114 million for a player that is only 21 years old. So they've done incredibly well there. In regards to a replacement, I feel it's not necessarily about replacing Caicedo, because he's not really someone you can replace. He's that, I don't think they'll ever, well, they may do, but I don't think they'll ever be able to find a player that they can sell again for 15 million pounds. So I think they're more looking to bolster their midfield with a number of good players rather than one exceptional player, because obviously we know Brighton are going to be playing in 4 competitions this season. That will require a big squad, and I think they're focusing on just padding out that squad, like I said, rather than trying to find the next Moises Caidcedo. So we've already seen that they've got a number of midfielders already in place. Obviously people like Billy Gilmore we expect to step up and play a lot more this season now that Caicedo has gone. People like Alzate have come back off loan. He will expect to feature more now that Caicedo's gone. And also the signing of Mo Dahoud, who played very, very well on Saturday. And of course, the known utility man, Pascal Gross, is also very competent in playing central midfield. So they've got a number of options already, but they are also looking at bringing in one central midfielder as a replacement. Carlos Belba, the young 19-year-old midfielder from Lille. He is seen as one of the sort of young up-and-coming stars from French football. He made his debut this time last year for Lille and impressed in a side that managed to qualify for the Europa Conference League last season by finishing 5th. So he is expected to cost around, well, Lille are asking for around £25 million. Brighton's first bid was around £16 million. So negotiations between the fee is still ongoing, but the player is said to be very, very interested in the move. So that is the one deal we can expect to see as a replacement, so to speak, for Caicedo. But elsewhere, we can maybe see Brighton bringing in another player after that. They have also been linked with Valentin Barco, the Argentinian left back who plays for Boca Juniors. Again, another 19-year-old player, meant to be one of South America's up and coming talents. Argentinian fans, national team fans, are very, very excited about his potential. Manchester City and Juventus have also been linked with him. In fact, Manchester City have been said to put in a bid this morning of around £8 million. So whether Brighton can compete with that, we're not sure. But again, that's another player that has spoken to Brighton and is very, very interested in the move to the south coast of England. So Brighton are going to be active at the end of this window. We expect to see at least maybe one, possibly even two players coming in. But in regards to the Caicedo deal, they know that's done now, and they've managed to get the best deal possible for him.
Yeah, absolutely. One player that we can't imagine ever leaving Brighton is Solly March, Derren. He's a goal against Luton made him the top scorer for Albion under De Zerbi. How important is he to Brighton and De Zerbi?
Yeah, very important. And just when you think that, Albion have brought in a number of new attacking options and players, Solly March continues to be, De Zerbi's trusted man on that right flank, and with his goals record since De Zerbi's arrived, it's quite rightly so as well. He scored 28. His 8th goal in 28 top flight appearances since De Zerbi came in, and prior to that, he just scored 4 times in 148 appearances. So it's how De Zerbi has used him has been quite remarkable, because before De Zerbi came in, Brighton were playing some very attractive football and just weren't finishing off the chances. And there was so much talk about, we need this new striker, this 20-goal a season striker to come in so that we can finally put a finishing touch on the chances that we're creating. But De Zerbi looked at it slightly differently. He had a 3 million signing from Japan in Karamatoma, and then Solly March, who'd just been sort of like a midfielder, hadn't really, looked like a goal threat in the past few seasons. And, De Zerbi's used those two brilliantly and got those in the right positions on the pitch. And you can tell that March has been working on his finishing in training as well. And now they're a real attacking threat off both flanks, and also with Evan Ferguson and Danny Welbeck in the middle as well. But yeah, it's great to see that Solly March continues to thrive, really, and he's going to have a big role this season as Brighton go into the Europa League as well. But what I thought was interesting as well, after the match, there were a couple of questions about Solly March in the press conference, and typical De Zerbi, he was like, yeah, I was pleased he got his goal, but he's too slow on the ball. He needs to be faster. He needs to move that ball faster. So he's always looking for those improvements, and so he will praise, and he's doing well. But then he will, there's also this incentive that, this is what you can do. This is where you can get to. And for me, that was just typical De Zerbi, really. So not just like, yeah, he's doing very well, we're so pleased. It's like, yeah, but let's get it to the next level, please, Solly March. And I think that's now the challenge for him coming up this season. I think he'll be in a team against Wolves for sure this weekend. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, yeah, soon forgotten that penalty miss in the semi-final, isn't it? Yeah, nobody's talking about that anymore, apart from me, obviously. Now, another young Brighton player, Evan Ferguson, has drawn comparisons with Harry Kane ever since he broke onto the scene last season. And now it appears Spurs want him as Harry's replacement. Do you think he will be going anywhere, Frankie? And how could Ferguson be? And if he did leave, what are Brighton's options in attack coming through?
Well, first, I don't think Ferguson will be leaving this summer. I don't think a bid will. I don't think Tottenham would be wanting to put a bid in for him, and also I don't think Brighton are anywhere in any position to let him go. I do, however, feel that Evan Ferguson is Brighton's next big sale. In regards to the fact that Brighton are still, as much as they are growing and improving as a club, they are still a selling club, and Evan Ferguson has the potential to be their next 70, 80 million, whatever fee they charge. He is that good. Bearing in mind he's still a teenager, and he obviously broke onto the scene last year and looked like a player, an experienced pro playing in the Premier League and grabbing, I think it was over 10 goals in all competitions, which is a phenomenal achievement for your sort of first, for your debut season in the top flight. He seems to be going from strength to strength. He got a brilliant goal on Saturday against Luton, and I feel he will be a key player in Brighton's side going forward for the rest of this year and hopefully the season after that. But in regards to how long he can stay at Brighton, it won't be for very, very long, I don't think, because as I said, there is a real big potential for Ferguson to be one of the Premier League's leading goal scorers and leading strikers. And if you look at the top clubs, people like Spurs obviously need, the 20 goal a season man is much more important for the top 6 teams, because those are the players that we normally associate with those clubs with 20 goal a season mans, and Ferguson will want to be one of those players. So where it leaves Brighton if he is to leave would be a disaster, because it would leave them with just João Pedro and Danny Welbeck. But I feel that he would be around for at least this season, probably the season after as well. And in that situation, I'm sure Brighton would be more prepared for him to go by bringing in replacements. But yeah, a fantastic player with a lot of potential, playing a sort of style of football that beyond his years, to be honest with you. And I truly believe he'll be one of Brighton's most important players this season.
Yeah, interesting. Brighton back in action at Wolves on Saturday at 3 p.m. They're a team that seem to be in disarray going into the season with Hulan Lopetegui. But it looks like Gary O'Neill was settled quickly despite the 1-0 defeat to Man United on Monday. It's not going to be easy for them on Saturday, is it, Derren? But they still would be expected to go there and win, wouldn't they?
I think so, yeah, based on last weekend's performance. But it's going to be a much tougher test. Wolves are a much more established team. Their players are much more experienced than Luton's team at this level. So I expect a very difficult game. And as you say, Wolves played very well against Manchester United, but for a VAR decision, they could have come away with something. It's been a difficult pre-season for them. They've had a change of manager. Quite a few of their top players have left during the summer. But I think Gary O'Neill is a good appointment. I thought he was really harshly done by to be sacked by Bournemouth at the end of last season. I think he's a manager with a lot of potential. I liked his Bournemouth teams, how he set his team up last season. Against Brighton, I thought they were a real handful, and they were just missing that attacking threat. But I think they play very well. They get a number of players forward quickly. They're not afraid to attack. They won't sit back. They will give Brighton a good game. So I think in that respect, bringing Gary O'Neill in is a good move for Wolves. So I think Brighton will be up against it, but they will go there with full of confidence. I expect Mahood and Gross to be in those central areas again. Mitoma and March on the flank, and maybe Evan Ferguson coming in from the start this time around, and also João Pedro as well, who impressed against Luton on the opening day of the season as well. I expect him to play a key role against Wolves. But no, it should be a good game, and I do expect Brighton to go there and take the 3 points.
Excellent. Well, we'll do the actual score predictions in a bit, but which Wolves player should Albion be wary of, Frankie? Matheus Cunha impressed at Old Trafford, didn't he?
He did. Like Derren said, it was a brilliant performance by Wolves. They were by far the better team at Old Trafford and should have won the game, not only by scoring 1 goal. I thought they should have had 2 or 3. But that is the age-old problem with Wolves. I think they've got the lowest from the current Premier League teams that were there last season. They've got the lowest amount of out goals not from set pieces in the entire league, and that's that is their problem. They can't seem to put chances away. But in regards to the 11 that played, you've got some very, very good players out there. Matheus Nunes is a very, very exciting player. He was playing in sort of a wide left position, but normally plays as sort of a central midfielder. Pep Guardiola called him one of the best midfielders in the world last year when Wolves played Manchester City. So he's someone to keep your eye on. Pedro Neto, of course, as well, back to full fitness now. They're sort of they're sort of electric right winger, Portuguese. He's always a box of tricks and will be a real handful down that Brighton left hand side. But that midfield area, I feel, was very, really strong for Wolves on Monday. I thought that was the key reason for why they dominated that game, as they were better than the United midfield. Lamela, and Nunes bossed them from start to finish. Sort of cut through them very, very easily and showed the power and sort of strength and aggression needed to win those sort of battles. So I think Brighton will have a tough test in that situation. Now there's no Caicedo and no McAllister. That midfield wasn't really tested against Luton for obvious reasons. It's a team with not much Premier League star power, but this is a much more stronger, experienced, quality side that they'll play on Saturday. But as Derren alluded to, what Brighton will have in their favour is that they're playing very, very well and they're scoring goals, which has obviously been an issue for Brighton for many years before De Zerbi came in, but seems to have been eroded away since the Italian arrived. So I feel Brighton will still go in favourites and still be expected to win. But this new post Caicedo McAllister era, this will be their first proper test, I would feel.
Yeah, absolutely right. As always, we move on to the proper football now, don't we? And 10 Sussex clubs are in the FA Cup action this weekend. Steve, who should we be looking out for, and how many can we expect to see in the next round?
Well, I've got breaking news, first of all. It's actually 11. I found another one. I found another one down the back of the sofa.
Oh,
so
right, okay.
We've got 11 Sussex teams in the... So this is the preliminary round of the FA Cup this week. Quite a few of these came through the extra preliminary round. And the teams in this round are looking to get through to the first qualifying round, which is when some higher placed teams will join in. So a quick run through the fixtures of interest to us. Badshottley against Lancing, Burgess Hill Town against Erith Town, Crawley Town Gatwick v Hamworth Villa, East Grinstead v Hythe Town, Eastbourne United v Sheerwater, Farnham v Crowborough Athletic, Newhaven v Spelthorne Sports, Ramsgate against Bexhill, Sheppey against Midhurst and Eastbourne, and the only Sussex derby in this round is Stenning against Peacehaven. And just an honourable mention as well for one team that we do follow because they're in the Crawley Observer patch. They're not quite in Sussex, but Crawley Town. They're at home to AFC Croydon Athletic. So plenty of interest and lots more Sussex teams to come in at later rounds as well. So yeah, FA Cup fever alive and well in Sussex so far. Hoping that about at least half of those teams can get through. And keep the interest going. And, we always dream of at least one Sussex non-league club getting to the first round, don't we? It's happened a few times in recent years, so let's hope it happens again this year.
Yeah, fingers crossed. There's been exciting news for Worthing this week on and off the pitch, Steve. Can you tell us more? I mean, I know they're top of the league, but yeah, what happened off the pitch?
The big news really, it is big news that they're top of National South. That's quite an achievement, 3 wins from their first 3. But off the pitch, they've had some new investment, significant new investment from a local businessman named Ralph Gilbert. He is the boss of the Focus Group, quite well known in the area and further afield. They're already the shirt sponsor. He is putting significant funds in and is going to join the board. And this is with a view to, there's 2 things really that Worthing are mindful of. They need to keep on improving their ground, their stadium at Woodside Road, as they move up through the divisions. And I think this investment is going to go some way towards doing that in the short term. They're also wanting to become a full-time club, with a full-time playing squad over time, which of course requires more money. And again, this investment will help towards that. So I think when Eastbourne Borough have just gone through the transition they've gone through with Simon Leslie taking over, new manager, whole new playing squad, they've gone full time. I think this is a route that more and more clubs at that sort of level, step 2 of the non-league pyramid, are going to go down if they can. It's very difficult to be sort of sustainable at that level if you want to go full time, because that's a big outlay. But if you've got investors to come on the board and to get involved, then it makes life a whole lot easier. But yeah, very exciting times for Worthing on and off the pitch, really.
Yeah, and Torque, you mentioned Eastbourne Borough there. How are they getting on?
So not such a good week for them. So after they won their first game at home to Hampton Richmond, which we talked about last week, they've had 2 away games this week, got a point at Farnborough in a 1-1 draw. But lost to Aveley. They went to Aveley Monday night, new to this level, but have started well. And Eastbourne Borough lost 2-0. So a bit of a setback for Mark Beard and his team, who had such a good pre-season, didn't lose all through pre-season. So, a bit of a check for them. But Mark Beard has spoken during the week, and you know, he's not too phased by it. It's very early days. There's going to be ups and downs, and they're back at home this weekend to Bath City, I think, who lost quite heavily in midweek, so they'll be looking to get back on track in that one.
Lovely. And the rest of the Isthmian teams, how did they get on this week?
Yeah, so the Isthmian League obviously kicked off last weekend. Mixed bag for our Sussex teams in the Premier Division. Lewis are the ones to watch so far. They've started with 2 wins. They won at home on Saturday and had a good win at Cray Wanderers. No, did they beat Cray? I'm getting mixed up into who beat who now, but no, Lewis won at Kingstonian.
I think it was Cray. Kingstonian, right.
Yeah, and they beat Cray on Saturday. So, yeah, 6 points from 6 for Lewis. It's a good start for them. A lot of new players there, notably Chris Whelpdale. They've signed from Eastbourne Borough. Eastbourne Borough obviously had quite a clear out in the summer. Whelpdale has gone to Lewis and has scored in both those games so far. Horsham have played 2, 1 win and 1 defeat for Horsham. So they've done okay. White Hawk still looking for their first win. They've had a defeat and a draw with Hastings on Tuesday night, which was quite a sort of bad-tempered game at times. White Hawk had 2 ex-Hastings players sent off and another 5 booked. Hastings have had 2 draws, and Bognor have started with a defeat and a draw. So it's a mixed bag, but it's very early days. That division is always one where anybody can beat anybody. It will be very close between the sort of teams in 4th and 5th, right down to 14th, 15th. You would expect all our Sussex sides to at least be wanting to be in the top half of that as things pan out. So yeah, we'll see how they all get on this weekend.
Excellent stuff. And we're just going to go on to quick cricket briefly, and probably best to avoid Sussex One Days Cup campaign. So in Sussex Cricket League, Cuckfield could actually win the Premier Division this weekend, Steve, couldn't they? And it's been an amazing season for them. Incredible.
Yes. Yeah, as we've said a couple of times, they came up from Division 2 last year. Most people probably would have predicted them to go back down again. But actually they've been winning week in, week out. Couple of drawn games. They've very rarely lost. And they really have been the team to catch, and people haven't been able to work them out. So they are at home to East Grinstead this weekend. They are enough points clear at the top that if they win this game, or even if they draw it, I think that could be it for them. You know, they could get over the line this weekend. If they don't, they've still got a couple more chances to do it. 2 more weekends of the league left after this weekend. East Grinstead have been one of their sort of closest challengers all season, but have just faded a little bit in recent weeks. Preston Nomads are still sniffing around there with a chance as well. So, yeah, good luck to all teams this weekend, but it'd be great if Cuckfield can surprise a few and go on to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just hope the weather stays off another weekend, which was disrupted by rain. Luckily, they all finished, but it's just been one of those seasons this year. Incredible.
Yeah, it has.
But we can't finish this podcast without mentioning the Lionesses. Frankie, how good were they yesterday against Australia? And what can we expect from Spain, who they play in the final on Sunday? I think it's 11 o'clock kickoff. Spain seem like a team with a few issues at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's been it's an amazing story for any team to come from the highs of just over a year ago when they won the European Championships at Wembley. I think we all remember those scenes. For a team to come back from such a euphoric high, you know, just 13 months later, missing 4 or 5 key players, you know, Ellen White, Fran Kirby, Leah Williamson, Beth Mead as well. All 4 of those players not playing at this World Cup due to injury or retirement. You would probably, I think a lot of people went into this World Cup not expecting an awful lot from England, truth be told. And they didn't start brilliantly. Those first, their group stage, they didn't really get going. There was some sort of poor performances against Haiti and against Denmark, and Kira Walsh got injured, one of their talismanic centre midfielders. It was still their backs were against the wall. Penalty shootout against Nigeria. They're incredibly lucky to get to a penalty shootout. Nigeria could have easily won that game, and so they're into a quarter-final. But since then, I think this is what England are. They've got a load of big game players, experienced players that don't do it. Don't do it. You know, don't play the best and probably not the prettiest football all the time, but they get the wins. And when the big moments matter against Australia, a host nation, with the best player in world football in Sam Kerr, you know, they were outplayed Australia. They thoroughly deserved. She scored an unbelievable goal. That was, you know, I mean, to get that goal and get Australia back into the game at 1-1, all the momentum behind them, the whole stadium behind them, a sellout crowd. You would normally associate that with Australia going on to win the game, but England, the experienced professionals that they are, saw out the game, you know, got a goal back, and then with less than 5 minutes to go, obviously Sam Kerr missed a golden opportunity to level the game. But a brilliant bit of football from Laura Hemp and Alexander Russo. And they go up the pitch and score. What I think we can all agree, that third goal was a beautiful goal to do it at such a high pressure situation. So they found their form at the right time, which is what all great teams do. And they go into this Sunday's final as favourites, because this Spain team is a young team with lots of exciting players, but again, a team that hasn't played brilliantly this World Cup. They haven't really hit the heights of the European Championships actually last year, when I think they were England's toughest opponents up into the final. They played them in the quarterfinals and pretty much outplayed England for 75 minutes. It was the substitutions at the end of the game that got England the victory at the Amex Stadium. Obviously, for back in June last year, but England will go in as favourites. They're a more experienced side. They've been there and done it, which I think is also such an important thing. Sarah Weinman has really set this team up brilliantly to deal with the big occasions. And although they can't, you know, take Spain lightly, as I said, there's a lot of very, very good players on that side and a lot of exciting footballers that play some really, really good football, as we saw in glimpses against their semi-final against Sweden on Tuesday. You really do have to favour England this one. This opportunity has come about because all the other big teams have faltered. Germany exited early. The United States of America, the team that no one could feasibly beat, out in the last 16. Japan have been knocked out in the quarterfinal. This is England's time with this group of players. They've never had a better opportunity to win a World Cup. So I'm very, very excited. I really hope they do it. And they would have to go down as one of Britain's all-time best ever sports teams, because not many can say they've won a European Championship and then a World Cup in the space of 2 years. It would be a fantastic achievement, and I really hope they do it.
Yeah, Derren, you mentioned in our little group chat after the game about Hemp's performance. How good was she? She was fantastic, wasn't she?
Yeah, I really enjoyed her performance. I just thought it just epitomised the whole of the England team, really. And yeah, as Frankie said, when we were playing in the Euros, you kind of knew what to expect from England. They had a set game plan and they went for it. Whereas this tournament, they've had to adapt and grow into the tournament and tweak it and change it as they've gone along. And I think that's what's made it more impressive, that they've been able to do that. And I think Lauren Hemp has been a player who has done just that. And against Australia, I just thought she was absolutely everywhere. She had the work rate, and then she had the skill and the quality at the key times as well. And you're sort of watching a game, you're like thinking, oh, who's that tracking back and getting the ball? Oh, it's Lauren Hemp. You know, you think, who's that? It's just played that killer through pass. It's Lauren Hemp. It's and then she got the goal as well. I just really enjoyed her performance. I liked her interviews afterwards as well, and how enthusiastic she was. And I just thought she was brilliant. She was a bit of the bridesmaid really at the Euros. There were other players that perhaps overshadowed her, and I think she's just really gone on another level at this World Cup and has been one of England's most important players. So yeah, really enjoyed the whole game and her performance in particular.
I think, Darren, that's the most exciting part about this, is that a number of these players that are playing so well, obviously before she got sent off, Lauren James was one of the ones that was very exciting, but Hemp, people like Greenwood, Kit Walsh, Stanway, Toon, all these players were a part of the Euro squad, but weren't, like as Derren said, they were sort of more on the bench or sort of fringe players. They've stepped up into a role that's needed to be filled, because, as I said, there's been a big changing of the guard in the last year. And that's really, really promising signs for England, that they've managed to almost, move on from that team that won the Euros and are still as strong as they were. So it's very, very exciting for all fans of England's women's football.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we will start our score predictions this week with the Lionesses for their World Cup final. We'll start with you, Frankie. What's your score prediction?
For the final?
For the final, yeah.
Yes, I think England are going to win. I really fancy them. I'm going to go for another 3-1 win, actually.
Wow. Steve Bone?
Yeah, I'm confident too. but because this is an England team, you just know they won't do it easily. They'll put us through it, won't they? Bound to make us sweat. I think it's going to go to extra time, but England to win 1-0 extra time.
Derren?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Steve on that as well. I don't know extra time. I'm not sure extra time, but I'm going to go for a 1-0. I think it's going to be quite tight, quite cagey. Spain gave England a really good game, like we mentioned back at the Amex, and where England had to come back for that one. So they've got a lot of quality in their team, Spain, and I think it's going to be very cagey. But England they just seem to have the right mentality, and I think they're just going to get over the line.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go tight as well, but I'm going to go 2-1 England. So England definitely winning the World Cup because we've said so. We'll start with you, Derren, this time. Wolves play Brighton.
Yeah, I can see Brighton winning that one. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's going to be easy. I think Wolves will be a good team, and I think Brighton will get a couple of goals. So I think it's going to be either 2-0 or 3-1. I'll go for a 2-0.
Yeah, Frankie.
Yeah, I yet again famously said that Luton would give Brighton a really close game and it'd be 2-2 last week, and they got battered 4-1. So again, my Mystic Meg predictions are still need to be slightly fine-tuned. But I am going to go for, I still think Wolves are going to struggle to score, so I'm going to go for a 2-0 Brighton win.
Yeah, Steve?
I'm going to continue one of my themes from last week as well, which weren't very successful, admittedly. But I did say that Wolves, and I do think Wolves are going to do better this season than a lot of people think. I think they're going to be quite hard to beat, as they've showed on already in their first game. I like Gary O'Neill, ex-Pompey player, of course, Gary O'Neill.
Of course.
And I think I'm going to go for 1-1 between Wolves and Brighton.
Fair enough. Always bringing it back to Pompey. I'm going to go for I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton. 2-1 Brighton, like you say, it won't be an easy one for them, but I can't see them not winning there. Final game, Crawley versus Gillingham. I'll start this one off. I think Crawley have proved that they can compete with teams that are playing well, certainly with MK Dons on Tuesday night, but it will be a very tough game, and I think Ashley Naderson and Tom Nichols will have the bit between their teeth coming back to Crawley. I think, but I think Crawley can hold their own against them, and I think it will be a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw on Saturday. Frankie?
Yeah, I think Crawley are in a really, really good place at the moment on the pitch. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Crawley win.
Oh, Steve Bone?
Yeah, I mean, I think Barcelona, Crawley Town, sorry, I keep getting those two. I think Crawley Town will have a spring in their step after the first 3 games, but Gillingham have had a strong start. The top of the table, I'm going to go 2-1 to Gillingham. Sorry, Crawley fans.
You're not welcome in West Sussex, Steve. Derren?
Yeah, I think Scott Lindsay's got them going. It's going to be, there's quite a bit of needle between both teams, and I think there'll be quite a feisty game, and I think Crawley will come out on top. 1-0 Crawley.
Excellent stuff. Brilliant. Well, thanks, guys. Really good chat there. You can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk, and we will be back again similar time next week. Thanks a lot, chaps.